Hello, clever people, and welcome to my review for Hidden Figures. So Hidden Figures is the new film starring Taraji P. Henson, Octavia Spencer, Janelle Monáe, Kevin Costner, and Jim Parsons, and it revolves around three ladies that worked on the NASA project, three African-American ladies, and how they were sort of overshadowed by the main events going on. This follows the true story of three individual African-American women that went through this and how they dealt with racism, how they dealt with things that were going on in the time, etc., etc. So Hidden Figures was a film that I was actually pretty excited for. I really liked the look of the trailer. It had this very great, Oscar look to it. So I thought, who knows, this could even be a contender for Best Picture. Reviews started coming out with very, very good talk of it. Rotten Tomatoes gave it like 90% or so. It was getting a lot of buzz, and I came out saying that I did indeed like Hidden Figures. I wouldn't go as far to say that I loved it or that it's an amazing movie, but I definitely had a very enjoyable time watching this in the theater. Something you can definitely say about the movie is that the acting from everyone is great. Maybe an exception here and there, but for mostly everybody, it's really, really well done. Taraji P. Henson is a name that I think needs to be more well known. I think that she's in Empire and maybe she's done a couple other films, but in this film, she absolutely shines as the leading character. She gives a lot of emotion. She just has all these great lines that she says really, really well. There's a certain scene where she's talking about how she, about racism and how it affects her and how she has to do these certain things, and she gets yelled at for doing them just because it's something natural. Just a few scenes like that throughout that are really, really well done, where she's just giving it her all. She's just giving, the purest amount of emotion that she can, and it's all very, very well done stuff. Octavia Spencer actually was the weakest of the three main leads, which is weird because she's the most professional actress of them, but she definitely did a really, really good job. She played a role where she was working with a lot of other ladies, and it was more of a group collaborative effort, but in her just one performance, she symbolized the group very, very well. And also Janelle Monáe does a great job in her performance. You really care about everything that's going on with her. You want her to, do well in school because she's attending a school so that she can get a promotion in her job. All these few things like that are very, very well done stuff that I really enjoyed her performance from. Everyone else does a fine job. There's not too many other standouts. Kevin Costner sort of just plays Kevin Costner, but Jim Parsons, he was in it, but he didn't necessarily do too much more. He gave a fine performance, and I did get away from seeing Sheldon in The Big Bang Theory, which is a huge typecast that he's going to have to get over. But for this little bit, I did see a different character in him. However, his character sort of felt wasted. He was just there to cause conflict among a few people, but besides that, all he did was just stand there. That's practically his entire performance. Something that I did admire about the movie was its portrayal of racism. Is it unsubtle? Absolutely. It is shoved in your face, just crammed down there, and at times it can be a bit annoying, but the way that they do it, it wasn't too bad, because it was very unsubtle, sure, but I did enjoy that because it showed how, big it was in these characters' faces, how much it affected them, and how much they had to go through it. It was a very well done and well portrayed theme. That does lead into one of my issues, which is 95% of the time, characters either talk about work or how racism affects them. You don't get too much else from these characters. All you really hear them talk about is how work affects them, is how racism hurts them. You don't really get too much about their characters. There's a few other subplots here and there, but besides that, it all really just revolves around those two things, and at times, when characters only talk about that, you don't have any motives behind them, and you don't necessarily care about what they're doing. This movie definitely, though, I think will appeal to the average person because it is very entertaining and very easy to get invested in. They introduced this story that you're already interested in from the start because you didn't know that there were African-American women working on NASA. Most people didn't know that. And the way that they portrayed in this movie is very well done. They show all these figures, all these people behind the scenes that worked hard, if not harder, at, achieving it so that a man could get into space on a rocket, and how they worked really, really hard, maybe even harder than the actual person that went into space. Something I also admired about this movie was how they didn't focus on the humor. Oftentimes in movies like this, you'll have it so that characters only, when they give humor, it's focused on for a really, really long time. But when they do it in this movie, it hits real quick, it gives you a laugh, and they continue on with it. They don't focus on it. It's not like Kubo and the Two Strings where they're constantly trying to hit you with it every single minute, but the way that they do it is well done. Something I didn't like about this movie, though, was the script. It had some very weak dialogue where characters would just be saying exposition. They would be talking about, oh, you know, this person does this thing, and they would just constantly be spouting out these lines of, you need to know this at this time, and you need to know this at this time. And that's all it came off, most of the time. But they also had these weird establishing moments of dialogue. Like, there's a certain scene you saw in the trailer where three African-American women, it's practically what the movie opens with, are driving down a road, and they are stopped by a policeman, and not only do they mention the time, the place, what's happening, the reason for being there, but even the police officer looks up in the sky and says, darn Russians are looking down on us. As if we didn't already know that the Russians and the Americans were in rivalry at the time. It doesn't give too much leeway to the audience. It doesn't think that they're smart enough, so they need constant reminders of what that era consisted of. There were also these very movie-like situations where characters would go specifically to these three characters and to no one else. Just certain scenes like that where characters would be focusing more on the main characters than the side characters, when really in real life it would have been more evened out and it wouldn't have been so one-sided towards them. There are a few moments like that that really make this feel more like a movie than a real event. But all in all, I do gotta say, I really did enjoy Hidden Figures. I like the way that they used the vintage footage. They put it in there, but they didn't focus on it. I like the way that they did the humor, the theme of racism. It's overall an enjoyable movie that I can recommend to practically anyone. Hidden Figures, no, not in my top 10 of the year or anything, but a film I enjoyed, and I will give it a 6.5 out of 10. Alright, that concludes my review for Hidden Figures. What did you think of the film? Comment in the comment section below. I am Robert Burke, and this has been The Clever Critics. Goodbye.